David and Goliath. For those of you who don't know the story of David and Goliath, it's one of my favorite stories from the Bible. One of them. And it's a story about it was the Philistines versus the Israelites, right? Another big epic battle. And the Israelites were not doing very well. The Philistines, had this incredible warrior, another incredible warrior called Goliath. He was like a 9-foot tall giant, huge, muscular man, with his armor all over and this big sword and shield. And he was, ready. He was like, he wanted a personal battle. He wanted to fight off all the Israelites. He said, I want someone to battle me. I want one person, anybody who can take me down. He was challenging people, mocking them and saying, anybody who can fight me. And so, of course, his army, was, very confident and hopeful and inspired. And the Israelites, were full of fear and terror. Just looking at this giant, they're like, how are we going to battle this person? It's impossible. They were like, it's impossible. Nobody can defeat him. Look at him. Look at his size. Look at his stature. Look at the power and the strength he has. Who can fight off this man and win? Well, little David, right? He's a little shepherd boy. And his father wants him, right, not to fight Goliath, but he wants him to deliver food to his brothers who are in, that army who was facing the Philistines. And so he is taking this food, to his brothers. And then he sees Goliath there. And he decides, I'll fight you. I'll challenge you. And Goliath is there laughing at him, like this little boy, smaller than all the other men in the army, this little tiny boy. And he's so confident, thinking he can win, he can fight me, this 9-foot tall giant. And Goliath is like, it's not me. I'm not going to defeat you. The God Almighty is going to put your head in my hands. And confidently, without any fear, he has his slingshot and he takes 5 stones. And then he takes one, slings it at the giant, hits him right in the forehead, and he sinks right into his forehead and he falls down dead. And of course, the rest of the army sees this and is shocked, appalled, and they run in fear, thinking if they can defeat Goliath, oh my God, we have no chance. And so the rest of the army flees. And the Israelites, suddenly they regain their hope and their confidence. And then they run forward and they're like, yeah, we win the battle. All because of little David with his slingshot. Well, a lot of the stories in the Bible, a lot of people miss this point, is that the stories of the Bible, whether they're real or not, I'm not going to go into that. But what I will say is that the Bible is truly meant to be read intuitively. Your soul, your spirit is meant to read and interpret these stories in the Bible. They are anecdotes of deeper truths. They're not just stories of real life events that someone has dictated and written down. They're anecdotes of the soul's journey, the soul's path to divine, to enlightenment. And Goliath is this huge ego self that mocks us, that laughs at us, that says we're incapable, we're incompetent. He was saying to David, I'm going to dismember you and feed you to the dogs. Feed your flesh to the dogs. You don't stand a chance. He's laughing at this little boy, but the boy's unfazed. The Israelites, they're under fear. They're terrified. That's the mind, the thoughts in the mind. That the ego has such influence over the thoughts in our mind that our thoughts themselves prevent us from taking action, from taking a risk. Possibly they could have defeated Goliath themselves. Who knows? But they were so paralyzed by their fear. The mind was so paralyzed by its thoughts that it couldn't even bring itself to battle. And David, the soul, the spirit, the part of ourselves that is permanently rooted in that divine presence, right? The shepherd, it's a symbolic representation saying that the shepherding of our thoughts, right? The role of the shepherd is to guide the sheep, right? Is to divert them, is to direct them towards the field, the pastures of green grass, direct them to the water, direct them at home, to stand guard and protect these sheep. In the same way, the story is saying we must do the same things with our own perception, our own thoughts, our own minds. But it's through the soul that we gain the power, the faculties of our mind to be able to do that. That through the strength, the adherence of this soul with the divine, by calling forth the power from there, we have the power to defeat even the most impossible of enemies, because in reality, nothing is impossible in front of the divine. You have an infinite reservoir of strength. It is not limited. It is self-effulgent. It's capable of anything. Your presence in this life is also self-effulgent. Consciousness through you is managing your own life. You're not doing anything additional to make that happen. But when we've disconnected ourselves from that source, we limit our own power. We become entrapped in lower states of consciousness, in lower vibrations, right, in lower oscillations. And as a result, our mental capacity is diminished, our clarity of thought, our discretion, our discernment, right? The discriminatory faculties of the mind to discern between truth and falsehood is reduced to nothingness. We can't differentiate between the truth and what is illusion, what is just our perception, what is a lie our minds are telling us. Our own perception is persuading us. The ego, the Goliath, and Israelites feeling like they can't do anything about it. They're struck down, they're defeated before the battle even begins. Now, there's also a symbolic meaning behind those 5 stones. Right? It's not just, right? It took just 1 stone to really defeat Goliath, but he picked up 5 stones. And here, David chooses 5 smooth stones from a river, a detail rich in spiritual meaning. These stones represent the divine qualities necessary to overcome the ego. The first smooth stone is faith, Shraddha, absolute trust in divine guidance. The second is discrimination, Viveka, the wisdom to discern truth from illusion. The third, inner strength, courage to act righteously despite challenges. Right? It's like the story of, the Mahabharata, where you must even relinquish any concept of personal gain in order to act righteously. Whatever challenges you face, even the challenges of personal ambition, you must have the inner strength to even forego that. Number 4, the 4th stone is meditation, dhyan, the focused concentration that stills the mind. And then, of course, the 5th stone, divine love, prema, the power that dissolves fear and separation from God. Now, these 5 stones, David picked up from a river, right? From a pond. It's symbolic in that they're smooth, because we don't start off with these qualities being perfect and smooth and ready for the plucking already. It takes time. And what smooths these stones over is that water. The nature of water smooths these stones over and makes them perfect. That with our sincerity, and the more we try and cultivate these characters, the more we act upon them, the more we direct our awareness, right? We follow the Dharma, we direct our awareness and focus on developing these characters in our lives. These characters, right? That divine grace that comes through, that evolves us when we follow the Dharmic principles and fundamentals, when we follow the truth, right? We harness more of this divine grace. This divine grace is this river. It is this water that polishes these stones on our behalves, making them smooth, making them perfect. Ultimately, we have to have this river running through us to be able to smooth these qualities over. But trust me when I say it'll take care of itself. That love grows. You don't need to worry. You're like, I don't have this love of God. But even from my own experience, as a child growing, I had a significant love of God, but that love grew and it was beyond my control. It was something God did for me. That love grew more and more. I was like, I thought I loved God before, but wow, this love is a new level, something beyond what I thought I was even capable of before. By comparison, I would say I didn't love God. If this is that love now, and I didn't have to practice a methodology or a trick, it was something that just evolved through that grace over time. The more I used that love, right? It's like using a muscle. And what happens when you're working out a muscle, you have to always use, right, a weight, use an opponent, use something else that's greater than your capacity, right? If it's easy for you to use a 5-pound dumbbell, do you want to develop muscles, bigger muscles with that same 5-pound dumbbell? No, you move on. You increase the weight. You go to 10 pounds, then 15, then 20, 50. Eventually, you're bench pressing hundreds and hundreds of, well, maybe not hundreds. Bench pressing much more than I could possibly say because I don't bench press anything. I don't have that experience. I bench press love. Right? The greater the opponent, that Goliath, the more we use these qualities to establish the Dharma, no matter what challenge or opposition we face, the more we cultivate these characters. The more we use them, the bigger they grow. The more you want or need love in a situation that requires it and calls for it, you go within to that stillness, that silent epicenter of consciousness itself, knowing that that is your true nature, that that is the divine. You call upon it with the love, right? Oil pulls oil, love pulls love. You go into that with love in your heart. You call forth from it with love. It pulls that love forth from that consciousness, from that divinity. And you now have this reservoir of love capable of accomplishing any trial that requires that love. Anybody who has a lot of challenges in life, be grateful, because these challenges are ways of growing. They're ways of expanding ourselves. If you know how to use them, these challenges is your greatest boon in life. It's not a challenge that causes suffering. It's our inability to address a challenge that causes suffering. And as we know, there is no inability to address a challenge. There's just the lack of motivation and desire to address a challenge. It's not important enough to us yet. We have to experience more of life until we experience a call unlike any other, where no matter what, nothing will fulfill us except for the divine. Discrimination, the more you use discrimination, the more you're on the search for truth and applying it, using it, implementing it, the more that muscle grows. The more you begin to recognize and understand. And the more even your experiences evolve and they change with your change in consciousness, you gain new experiences and it gives you new perspectives, which applied to that discrimination gives you new vantage points by which to apply those faculties of discrimination. What you thought was truth before has now evolved and changed because your world has changed. So never look down on someone for having challenges. Sometimes those people are the luckiest to have that challenge, especially when they know how to use it. Until eventually you're so established in that peace that the challenge itself cannot bring you out of it. And then you realize, true peace does not come from controlling my life or trying to curate my existence, but rather it's the effects of that presence, that ocean. It's that droplet that's finally just dissolved itself completely. And now the same face, the same name, the same personality, but the peace never goes away. You can lose power, but enlightenment is never lost. You can never lose enlightenment. That is permanent. If you're afraid of losing something, it's not enlightenment. It's all ego.